Hello, beautiful people! My name is Athol, talking about marriage, relationships, and getting what you want from them. In yesterday's video, I talked about sexual frequency being a really good indicator of the overall health and quality of the relationship. When the relationship tends to be very good, sex tends to be frequent and good. When the relationship is not so good, the sexual frequency tends to be a lot lower. So a decline of sex or no sex at all tends to be an indicator that something is wrong. So as a follow-on to yesterday's video, just because that there is something wrong with the relationship, there's something wrong with the sex life, doesn't mean that it's necessarily unexpected or unnatural. Because one of the biggest reasons why sex can go away is that one or both of the people in the relationship have some kind of disruption to their normal functioning of their endocrine system. So the endocrine system is going to be the part of the body that creates all the sex hormones, and it is the sex hormones that enable someone to have a libido, feel sexy, and want to have sex. So anything that is disrupting the endocrine system and disrupting the normal functioning of sex hormones is going to diminish libido. So there's some really common things that can do this. One of which is pregnancy, another is breastfeeding, and another is hormonal birth control. So, and it's especially true when you have a woman in a relationship and she has one, two, or three of those factors going at any one time. And it's often fairly common when you have a bunch of kids close together where you're pregnant and then you are breastfeeding, and then there's a couple months break or maybe years break, and then it's back to being pregnant, and then there's breastfeeding, and then a break, and then pregnant and breastfeeding. Well, there are some women who even in their peak of normal health in their 20s, maybe early 30s, where they've been in a cycle of endless pregnancy and breastfeeding, and the libido just sort of slowly drifts away because they're in this endless cycle of having their normal endocrine system disrupted in terms of wanting them to have more children, creating the libido. So it's fairly common that the guys in these situations, when they're married to these women, slowly feel more and more frustrated and lonely and left out of it, and sad that the sex life is kind of going. But she may very well have very little control over her libido if she's been in a constant pregnancy and breastfeeding cycle. And there's been a number of people I've talked to where the solution to all of this is, well, do what you can for the relationship, maximize your attractiveness, but you may well just have to kind of wait until she's done with her pregnancy, she's done with breastfeeding, and it's only when that is over that we are going to figure out what the new normal is. Yeah, and that's a hard lesson, hard truth at times, but it's the reality. She may love him just fine. She may be committed to the relationship. She may actually be pretty happy, but just feel like her libido is being completely nerfed because of this pregnancy and breastfeeding cycle. And of course, if you have a bunch of little kids, well, we can throw in some sleep deprivation and all-purpose exhaustion. The other thing that you can really look for with an endocrine disruption is look at hormonal birth control, and often they can have very, very subtle effects. And this can kick in even with changes on type of birth control. And I don't mean switching from condoms to the pill or an IUD or whatever, but sometimes even changing the dosage and the particular script of birth control that she is on. She may have been just fine on one med, and then for whatever reason they switched it to another one. And you're not necessarily going to see those effects until they sort of accumulate over time. So it's always well worth paying attention to when hormonal birth control was started, stopped, changed, and looking back and seeing if anything changed in the sex life around that time. And certainly many women can have no particular effects, negative effects in terms of their libido from hormonal birth control, but some of them are really hurt by it. The other thing that can possibly be is when it's the guy and we're talking about some sort of low testosterone, and that's probably a whole extra video that I'll get to at some point. But for the most common ones are for the woman. It's pregnancy, it's breastfeeding, it's hormonal birth control. And if you have any of those thrown in there, there is always the possibility that your libido is going to be diminished. And it's not anything necessarily that the guy is doing to cause it, and it's not necessarily anything she's doing to cause it either. It may just be something that is happening to the relationship. So that's about it. Gonna leave it there. Please like, comment, share, and most importantly, please do subscribe, and I will talk to you tomorrow.